what's in your mind right now when you look at what's being built in crypto in general, on Sui and all that?
So that's my perspective on crypto as a whole. This year was really the first time I ever felt like I don't know if the industry can dig itself out of this hole. It just seems like the wrong technology is getting all the attention.
Today's guest is Brian Lee, co-founder of Studio Mirai and Coda. Brian thinks most of crypto is still building the things in slightly different wrappers. Almost everything that is shipped and almost everything that has worked sits inside finance. He's building the case for what comes next, on Sui, starting with the one industry that's been broken for as long as anyone can remember.
And there's so much money pushing the wrong technology that it's just very hard to dig out of that hole. But for Sui itself, I have never been more excited. Like, the Sui team have been improving things over the past year. So many new things in like Sui framework and the other technologies that are connected to Sui, like they've just been going all out at that. I think over the past year and a half, we saw the limits of the use cases that Ethereum can do. Like, outside of the financial use cases, I don't know if you can name anything that has really been used by people in the mainstream. Base kind of had a social app for a while.
Yeah.
That
Farca stuff.
Yeah, that didn't really go anywhere. And so if even Coinbase can't build an app on top of the Ethereum stack and have it actually impact people in the real world, I'm not really confident that it's possible. So I do think the industry needs to mature up and acknowledge that Ethereum could be great for the finance use cases, but let's see what other options there are.
What is Coda? What are you building?
Coda is it's like a ground up rebuild of the music economy. The streaming apps don't share much information to the artist. They don't give it to you because the product is the artist. The product is not the music. The product is selling access to the music of the artist. So in the business where the artist is trying to build up their fan base through the streaming platforms, the artists don't have any control. On our app, all of the playback activity is happening on chain. And because it's open and because it's not being trapped inside a bunch of different companies that don't talk to each other, it gives you a primary source that is like the highest degree of signal that you could possibly get. So I think that building on Sui is really something that if you're a builder looking to build outside the finance space, maybe dip your toes in a bit and you might be surprised as to what you find.
Welcome to Just the Metrics podcast. Today we have Brian Lee from Studio Mirai. Brian was last time here around a year back, just before the Sui base camp, and those were really exciting times. We talked about, Studio Mirai, the events, Mirai Dubai, and all that, how they really built up this brand from ground up, and a lot of tech side about Sui, Walrus, and all that. And it's great to catch up with Brian after a year. And so, welcome, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for hosting this podcast. I'm excited to get started.
We are doing this podcast at a time when one of Brian's high conviction project, like Coda, is approaching its testnet release, and soon after that, mainnet. But before we talk about Coda, let's step back a bit and, what's your perspective on crypto right now? The sentiment, the builder side, what's in your mind right now when you look at what's being built in crypto in general, on Sui and all that?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. So for me, I think the past few months, I think a lot of us have considered it to be a bear market, but quite frankly, I don't even know what a bear market or a bull market is anymore because the world is kind of crazy now. But it's interesting because during the time maybe a year ago when I think we could feel it was a bull market, I felt so distracted. I could not focus, and it was kind of a stupid distraction too, because I saw so many people like talking about meme coins and stuff like that and making a lot of money, but then deep inside I know like I would never actually buy it regardless. So I was like, why am I getting so distracted about something that I wouldn't even want to put my cash in? And I think the bull market is just really a time where it's really, really hard to focus. On the contrary, when price started to go down, I think for the first few weeks, you feel like a bit scared and you feel a bit like, is this the end of the world? Even though I've gone through it maybe 3 or 4 times now, the first few weeks is always like that. And then I felt so calm after that. I could go and work and not have to go on X and see someone made like 500X on some coin. There was no more of that. It was just silence. And for me, it really reminded me of when we first built SM back in a previous bear, where like a lot of teams just gave up and we just locked in. I got that kind of sense again, and the past few months especially, I really did get a lot done. Since we last talked, that's kind of been the vibe, I guess. And to answer your question about where crypto is going, or you want to talk about where Sui is going first, which one should we talk about first?
You were mostly talking about the general overview, and maybe you can just talk about like where crypto is going and what is really exciting for you right now in terms of where it is going.
I think over the past year and a half, we saw the limits of the use cases that Ethereum can do.
So you're talking like there's a case to be made for only financial use cases like 5-6 years back, but now I think we have better technology to move forward, and there.
Yeah, like outside of the financial use cases, I don't know if you can name anything that has really been used by people in the mainstream. Base kind of had a social app for a while.
Yeah.
That
Farcaster.
Yeah, that didn't really go anywhere. And so if even Coinbase can't build an app on top of the Ethereum stack and have it actually impact people in the real world, I'm not really confident that. I do think the industry needs to mature up and acknowledge that Ethereum could be great for the finance use cases, but let's see what other options there are. Because the more we delay that, the more we try to use a limited tech stack on Ethereum to build apps for the mainstream, different kinds of use cases, the more times we fail at that, the harder it is for the industry to dig itself out of that hole. And as a builder on Sui, like what I just said is absolutely crystal clear. And I also think that if people disagree with that, they first need to build on Sui first. You can't just be outside, you've never touched something before, like you've never touched anything on Sui, haven't coded a single line. All you read about Sui is stuff that you read on X. Like if you're coming from that perspective, it's not really an opinion that's worth much. So I think that building on Sui is really something that if you're a builder looking to build outside the finance space, maybe dip your toes in a bit and you might be surprised as to what you find. So that's kind of my perspective on crypto as a whole. This year was really the first time I ever felt like I don't know if the industry can dig itself out of this hole. It just seems like the wrong technology is getting all the attention. And there's so much money pushing the wrong technology that it's just very hard to dig out of that hole. But for Sui itself, I've never been more excited. Like the Sui and Miston team have been constantly improving things over the past year. So many new things in like Sui framework and the other technologies that are connected to Sui, like they've just been going all out at that.
So you talked about like what you are really optimistic about, the kind of technology that being built on Sui and what it enables. And like considering like, can we go a bit deeper into that? I just want to connect two things that you said earlier in this conversation, where you said bear market is, it feels all quiet. For a lot of teams and builders, this is like it's a tough time to raise money and a tough time to like push products or things like that. But it's also a time where if you have real conviction on something, you can focus and build, and you have less competition in a sense that like we saw that multiple times from in the 2017 cycle. There are like a lot of ICOs which were money grabs, and that went away, but something really came out of that cycle in terms of DeFi and all that. In 2021 there were like similar events, but you look at Solana ecosystem, like they got totally blown out after FTX and like that mega events, but the builders who persisted came out through that crisis and is basically one of the strongest ecosystem right now. So there's always this the dip. This time we did not see any massive kind of the 10th of October event was massive in terms of how much money people lost, but it never resulted in some systematic kind of crisis. We are going into a moment where things are slowing down in terms of narrative, but it feels like the builders and ecosystems that push through this time will come out on top. One of the reasons I think that if you look at from a really objective perspective, like use cases like predictions, like it's like all-time high volumes right now, or the stable coin issuance and volume is also all-time high, in the sense that if you look at the fundamentals, there has never been a better time to be optimistic about the at fundamental level. But it also a time where things slow down, there's less noise, so it also gives that focus. And getting back to that angle, like, and going deeper into the Sui conversation, what exactly makes you like really optimistic about where Sui is right now?
Yeah, I think the most optimistic thing for me at the moment is just the ability to build stuff on chain. If you think about back to Bitcoin, what did Bitcoin bring on chain? It brought the ability to own an asset that no one can take away from you, right? And then you think about like, what did Ethereum bring on chain? Ethereum brought on chain the finance stuff as well, but it went beyond just the issuance of an asset that someone can't take away. The addition of the ability to run code made it possible to do stuff like trading on chain and to do stuff like lending. And that brought a lot of the traditional finance aspects on chain. I think what Sui allows you to bring on chain, as opposed to is not possible on Ethereum, is to bring additional things outside of finance that are not typically expressed inside an account. So banking and lending could be brought on chain on Ethereum because those things, even in the TradFi world, are mapped to accounts. So when Ethereum first came out, I think one of the main use cases they were trying to target was the finance stuff. And I think that was what influenced how the blockchain chose to actually store information. So a contract on Ethereum maintains its own set of accounts, similar to how a bank in the real world also has accounts. So that allowed you to bring stuff that is adjacent to banking on chain. What Sui allows you to bring on chain is the ability to describe like discrete assets. So it's no longer just expressing things that are typically captured in the form of an account. It's also expressing things that are outside of that. And the ability to just create any kind of object and to define how it can transform as time passes. For us, it was really like thinking about like how to capture a song on chain. Like what are all of the fields that you would need to describe a song? And how do we describe it as like res as possible with an object on Sui? And like that just made me feel really optimistic because now you're able to capture things. One example is, let's say when someone streams a song in the real world right now, if you open up an app, you stream a song, there is stuff happening in the background when you stream a song. Like a counter will increase somewhere, and then at some point, like the money will flow to this place, and then XYZ happens. All of this plumbing is happening in the background. And in the real world, we have words to describe the functionality of all of these entities that sit between the artist and the fan who is streaming the song. So all of these entities can be described in words. Because they can be described in words, they can be described as objects on Sui. So the ability to basically think about how money can flow through the plumbing of a specific use case and to be able to capture that as functionality on a permissionless blockchain, like that completely is why I'm building on Sui. Because on Ethereum, you really can't define that. Like you can't define like even how long a song is, because the model that they use is we store an ID on chain and then the actual properties of the asset are stored off chain. So by design, like that should already be a huge red flag for anyone who wants to build stuff outside of the finance space. Because if you're trying to build a use case and kind of like the economics of that use case depends on the blockchain knowing about the assets. A practical example of that is like if you're trying to build an economy on top of how long people listen to a song for, shouldn't the blockchain know how long the song is? If the blockchain has no idea, how could it make an economic effect with that asset?
What about Solana?
Yeah.
What about Solana?
Solana is the exact same thing. Their standards also only capture the ID of a token. If you go on the websites that are documenting all of their standards, like right at the top, it's so funny, you'll see, please store this info off chain somewhere. It's not coming on chain. It's like in a big box at the top. This is how you do it. Again, because they also use the model of an account. The data structure is not designed in a way for this flexibility. And when something is not designed for a certain purpose, there's only two outcomes. The first outcome is you might be able to do it, but it's super inefficient, which is it costs so much to actually like store stuff on Solana. The second outcome is it's just not possible. So it's either too inefficient or it's impossible. And that's not a thing that's specific to crypto. Like in any part of life, if you're not using a tool for its intended purpose and you try to twist it to do something else, most times it's not going to work out.
These are use cases like you said earlier. People try to build these non-financial use cases on technologies that are not really compatible to host these kind of use cases. And there are big failures that happened in terms of like Farcasters raised around 180 million and it failed to like really show some non-financial thing popping out of the crypto space. Like Sui has a technology stack that supports something like that. And is it just a Sui blockchain or where does the rest of the components, like we never talked about some things like Walrus, Seal, or like the whole Sui stack. Is that what differentiates along with the data structure, like objects compared to accounts? Is there a big differentiation because of the kind of associated technologies that enable you to things like that?
Definitely, yes. I think I explained last time on the podcast, when we were first starting to build it out, we were wondering like, where are we going to store the sound file? And then Walrus came out shortly after that. I was like, wow, they read my mind. And then the next thing we were thinking about, there were some features that required us to gate certain things behind. If there's something that only a person that buys a song should be able to see. So we were like, how are we going to do that? And then they came out with Seal. And then another thing, this was maybe 6 months ago now, we got to the point we were thinking, okay, now we're going to store the sound files, and then we store information about the sound files, such as like the bit rate of the sound file and all these like technical aspects, in addition to like how long the sound file is. We capture all of those on Sui. The problem then was, how do we know like those are the right fields? Because someone could just create a sound file object and say it's 6 hours long, and then they map it to a blob that's being stored, but there's no link there. there was no way to prove that a specific blob being stored actually maps to these technical aspects that are being stored on Sui. And there were two solutions we could have done there. We could have just made the smart contract so that only we could make objects on chain. So that would require it turning from a blockchain that a smart contract that anyone can use to one that only us can use, or like groups that we trust, right? Which solved that issue as well. I really think like Miston Labs team is somehow completely locked in to what exactly builders need to be able to build the next big streaming app, to build the next YouTube, to build the next, all these apps that we use on Web 2. What do those apps look like in this new world? I've never seen a team just consistently just read my mind. Like every single time I get to a place where I know I'm about to be blocked by something, they just come out with the exact thing that fixes the roadblock, and then I can keep going. This has happened 4 straight times now. So it's not really, no, I think like they just have a really good sense about what kind of tech stack needs to exist.
Yeah, here I have to like pick your brain a bit in terms of, you mentioned like, there is no similar technology stack where you can do like a version of YouTube on chain, or Spotify, or these all, or like Twitter, or these kind of app platforms that are like centralized platform. What they provide, I understand, is distribution in that sense, right? For people to collect and information or build based upon like content, their own brand, revenue streams, and all that. Where do you think there need to be a version of these applications to exist, like in a blockchain based, or like the technology stack, something like Sui? Like what is the business model, or what does it change?
I think in one word, transparency is the most important thing. I can give you an example in the industry that I'm working in. I can't exactly say too much about the YouTube stuff. I can talk a lot about the industry that I'm working in. So one big problem that music on a transparent and open blockchain would solve is the access to information that an artist has access to about their fans. And not only access to it, but also let me frame it in a context. So right now, when an artist wants to put their music out, they release it on many different platforms. There's like 4 or 5 big streaming apps. And one big issue is the streaming apps don't share much information to the artist. So there's not really like a dashboard that you can go into and ask it like, oh, can you tell me which fans listened to 6 hours of my songs in the past month? And can you give me a way to contact them? No streaming app is going to give you that. They have that information. They don't give it to you because the product is the artist.
Yeah.
The product is not the music. The product is selling access to the music of the artist. So in the business where the artist is trying to build up their fan base through the streaming platforms, the artists don't have any control. And it's compounded by the fact that every streaming app maintains their own information. They don't cross-reference it with each other. So there's no situation where I want a list of fans that listen on streaming app 1 and streaming app B, because those 2 streaming apps are not incentivized to talk to each other. They're competing with each other. They're structured as a corporation where they have to answer to people who hold their shares. So just like the whole system is set up in a way where all the entities that sit between the artist and the fan, the economics of the whole system force them to hoard the information as much as they can. So blockchain fixes that. On our app, all of the playback activity is happening on chain. So when you hit play, that is making an event on Sui. It captures stuff like what song was played, what the current timestamp was, how long was the song played. So all of this is being published on a public blockchain, which means then all of the data can be combined. And because it's open and because it's not being trapped inside a bunch of different companies that don't talk to each other, it gives you a primary source that is like the highest degree of signal that you could possibly get. So on our platform, the artists will be able to ask the question, give me the list of fans that listened to 1 hour of my songs in the past week. This degree of transparency really opens up the door to do really interesting things with how the artist does outreach to their fans, because they no longer have to do like a spraying kind of method where they try to post on many platforms. It's very imprecise. They might post on Instagram or something like, send me a message if you went to my show. That's a very imprecise way to do marketing, because of course there's going to be people who didn't go to your show, but they're going to send you a message anyway, right? Because they're your fan. So now we give the ability to the artist to really pinpoint their top fans. And it's just really exciting because it's the first time that this information is available on a public source that no one can gatekeep. So I'm certain that we will certainly help to publish this information on chain, but I'm excited to see what other people do with the information as well.
Yeah, and maybe this is the right time to get into what Coda is. We talked about the technology, what's the differentiation, but we never talked about what is Coda, what are you building, and what is this application, and why is it important?
Coda is like a ground up rebuild of the music economy. The music economy right now is, you have the artists on one side, you have the fans on the other side. You have all these entities that sit in between that hoard information, extract a lot of money, and just delay things. That's what they specialize in. They make things slow because they hold the money, so the longer they keep the money, the more interest they can earn on it. They hoard all of the information, so the artist has as little information as possible, and the artists will put up with that because they love what they do. That the music industry has decided on as kind of the thing that fans buy and the artists sell is a sound file. I've done a lot of thinking about this lately. It's actually a format, it's a product that is optimized for distributors to distribute. It's not optimized for the artist to have as much expression in terms of the artistic side. It's also, in many cases, not what most fans care about. And what I mean by that is, if the product is a sound file, then people already lost, because now we have all of these tools that can make millions of sound files just by prompting, right? You can prompt these tools now, make me a song that is jazz style, has this kind of voice, and XYZ. And it'll spit out a sound file for you. And I think if humans have to compete with that, it's just not possible. So when I started to realize that these tools were allowing millions of sound files to be made with no effort at all, it really made me think that maybe music itself, there's something different between music and sound. I think a lot of the stuff that we create with these tools, I classify those as sound, they're sound files. I don't necessarily say, but when I think about the music, there is a human aspect to it, where I think a lot of people, when they listen to songs they really love, they're not just in love with the waveform of the sound file. Their brain goes to places. They might be thinking about what made a certain band write this song, what was going on in their life, to some hardcore jazz or something. Your mind goes and thinks about how long did this person practice to be able to do something like this. And you can really draw a parallel to sports. Sports and arts have a lot of things that are the same. And the core thing that they share is the talent aspect. Like you have these people who dedicate their whole life to something to be able to perform for you. So when you go to a sports game, right, there's definitely a part of it where you're kind of in shock. If someone jumps from like the free throw line and dunks a basketball, there's something entertaining about knowing that you'll never be able to do it, right? And I think sports and art both share this thing where as a human, you naturally compare yourself, right? And you go to these events or you listen to something with headphones and you're just like, wow, this is a human who did that. I'll never be able to do that. I respect that. And when you have the AI music, that whole layer is completely lost. There's no longer, oh, my brain goes and thinks about how long did this person practice? Because there was no person that practiced. It was just made by a computer. So I think the key to music is really diving into the aspects that are beyond the sound file. And that means a lot of things. We have our own interpretation of it as to exactly what that means. Unfortunately, I need to hold off on explaining exactly what that is, but it's only going to be 3 or 4 more weeks and we'll be going live on mainnet soon. So people will be able to see what that means.
And if you go from what it enables to from an adoption perspective, it is a great use case, great technology to enable something that does not exist right now. And when you go out and talk to these artists, like what does their response say, and what kind of feedback are you getting, and what kind of adoption are you getting? I saw your tweet that you have already onboarded some artists. So talk about that a bit more.
I think it falls into 2 camps. The first camp is they don't trust it. People in the arts have very strong feelings about new technologies. This has been a theme for a long time. If you think back to, I don't know, like the 1990s when synthesizers first started to come out, there was a lot of people who only believed that the real stuff could only be made by acoustic instruments. There was this active rebellion against the synths. Similarly, when computers got more advanced and you could start to make the music directly on the computer with all these different apps, again, there was this pushback like, oh, now we don't need soundboards anymore. We don't need acoustic instruments anymore. People are making stuff on the computer. It takes the aesthetic vibe away. There was, again, resentment towards new technologies. The interesting thing about those 2 examples is they didn't involve anything with the financial stuff. In 2017, 2018, 2019, a really interesting thing happened where people started to sell JPEGs for millions of dollars. That was terrible. For that, like that whole time was, I think, one of the worst things that ever happened, because a lot of it was gaslighting, where speculators and grifters were like, this is real art. This is real art. JPEGs. If you don't get this is real art, it's like you just don't get it. If there was this whole gaslighting vibe, and that actually made artists jealous and resent the technology more, because they saw themselves like, wait, I thought we were doing art, and there's these random people selling pictures of rocks and calling it art, which is the same thing that we're supposed to be making, but we have to work 5 jobs at Starbucks and all these different things just to make rent. And then there's these people who are saying things are art, and they're making millions of dollars. So as someone who kind of has one foot in crypto and one foot in the world of arts, I saw this firsthand. Like, the artists completely dismissed the potential of the technology. Ironically, And I say that because actually crypto technology has the ability, when implemented correctly, to completely fix all the problems that the artists have. But they hated the technology because all they saw were grifters doing art projects and making a lot of money and getting rich. That stigma never went away, and in fact, it has even intensified. So back in 2018, 2019, when I was first starting to like brainstorm all of this stuff, there were a lot of people in my network, like not Web3, just people I used to go to school with, people I used to like work with and stuff. A lot of them were genuinely interested about the technology. Fast forward 5 years, they don't want to hear any of it because all they heard was people losing money, people making millions off art when it was not art. So there's definitely like a big camp of people who still believe it's a scam, and it's very difficult to get across to them because the damage just has been done. And I think to get that class of people back, you almost have to trick them. Like you have to build something that is so good and has no mention of crypto, has no mention of Web3, and then you just pray that like they don't find out it's Web3 or something. Because once they find out, it's game over. Like they just see that word and it's done. They're not going to touch it again. So there's that camp, and our approach to that camp has just been like, hey, let's stay in touch. We know you don't want to be involved with this right at the moment, but maybe once you see what we're actually doing, we're trying to help you at that point. There's still some of the artists that are pretty open, experimenting with new technologies. So working with those people has been really good. But yeah, it really falls in those two camps. It's just people who hate it and then people who don't mind it. There's no one who loves it.
And like, so the people who love it, what are they saying? Like the people who are artists and like it clicks with them, what are they saying about it once you present this?
It's just unbelievable. I think we're solving issues that many teams have not even thought about. And one of the big things that I just shared with you was just the fact that maybe a sound file is not actually the product that is most important to an artist, is their bond with the fan. So any kind of musical product should enhance that. So the sound files should not be the end result. It should be the way to create the bond between the artist and the fan. And this was really apparent when we were doing some research. We spent quite a lot of time talking to fans. And one question we asked was, do you still buy songs? And if you do, why? None of them said they buy songs to listen to. Almost all of the people who said they still buy songs, the reason was to support the artist. It was never to load into their app to listen to, because no one does that anymore. People just stream songs, right? So the fact that people still buy songs, not to listen to, but to support the artist, means there actually is a market out there for ways to support the artist. But the most amazing thing, I think, for some of the artists that we've been talking to is just the speed of how fast they get paid. So in the current world, there's really like two main ways to get paid. When people stream your songs, it often takes 3 to 6 months to get a paycheck from that, because the streaming apps have to calculate like what percentage of all the streams, like your streams, counted for. That happens maybe like once or twice a month, and then they have to send it to all these different places to calculate. And by the time it's all done, not only has it been 3 to 6 months, but also a lot of the money has been skimmed off. And then it's kind of on them to figure out how to forward the money to all the people who, whatever the splits are. So if your band makes 10 grand or something from selling your songs on Bandcamp, and on paper you agreed like this person has 10%, that person has 15%. Someone has to take the money first and then initiate all those transfers. So even though Bandcamp might pay you within 2 days, it still takes additional time for you to do the accounting, to do all of the split payments. Compared to our platform, once a sale is made, all of the rights holders gets paid in less than 1 second. So that was really amazing. And not only less than 1 second, but all the financial accounting is done for you. So you don't even have to think about like, how are you going to send it to that person? Do I need to get their bank account? Do I need to get their PayPal account? It's just whoever the people who hold rights are, it's instantly split and it's instantly sent right when the sale happens. Practice for streaming as well. So if in the future we decide to make some kind of streaming app where you might pay 1 cent to stream a song, we can split that 1 cent among all the shareholders instantly. And yeah, that was one of the most amazing parts that people just didn't believe. It's pretty crazy. It's almost too good to be true, I think.
Yeah, that is a really like mind-blowing in the sense that how easy it makes for the artists to, to get to the right people. But one of the issues with, or one of the reasons why people go to YouTube or, Spotify, or why someone starts an X account on X, or all the audience who want to watch videos are either on YouTube or Twitch. Twitch is main for streaming, or the people who want to listen to music, they just go to Spotify. So how do you solve the distribution problem? Because all of these artists, to really earn money, they need people who can access their work or art through a platform. And how are they going to reach these people who are really interested in their work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when you're talking about distribution, there's actually 2 different ways you can scale that up. You can either scale wide, which is what all of these big Web 2 platforms do, or you can scale up, and it has to do with pricing. So if you want to scale wide, you need to price it really low. If you want to scale this way, scale up, you price things higher, and then you have to sell less. So an example of scaling wide is basically all of these streaming apps where they only charge you $10 a month. They charge you $15 a month. You listen to as much as possible. 1 million streams to make $3,000. So that business optimizes for getting as many customers as possible. And if you want to get a lot of customers, you have to set the price low, because most people are not going to pay a lot of money for that. So we actually are using that to our advantage. I think it would be stupid for me, or quite frankly, like anyone building in Web3, to instantly come out and say, we're going to compete with all these platforms. So what we've been telling the artists is, when you upload your music to the streaming platforms, what do the fans get? The fans only get to listen to the music. And quite frankly, like, all the music is on YouTube for free anyway. I see the streaming platforms as a way to build up your fan base, distribute wide as much as possible. But then once you find that fan base, once you use these platforms that are optimized to be as wide as possible, once you find those fans, direct your most hardcore fans to us, because we give those hardcore fans a way to express their fandom by scaling up. So those are the fans that might pay $20, might pay $50 to own a record that grants them exclusive access to XYZ. And out of, let's say, if an artist has like 100K fans, maybe 1,000 of those are super hardcore, maybe 500 of them. If 500 of them buy something that's $20, that's already more money than they would ever make from streaming, right?
Yeah.
So we're not really competing on distributing wide, because quite frankly, like, I don't even know if like Sui could handle that right now. Like, if next day 1 million people try to make Sui accounts and try to do stuff on chain, I don't know if the network is even equipped for that. So we need to grow to that place. And I think the best way to do it is just to offer a product that the existing platforms are too big to offer. And that's what we're going with first. Like, use these Web2 platforms to build up your fan base as wide as possible, and then direct your most hardcore fans to us.
And it sounds more like a super fan app where you get like unique experiences with the artist you like and with their songs or other artistic expressions. And so now you are closing the testnet release and the mainnet release is coming soon after. So when it goes live, what is possible? What will be available for people to interact with? Or how does that experience of interacting with that look like from a user side?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a sneak peek after this, but what I can say is at mainnet launch, we're probably going to have 4 or 5 things that people can buy. I would guess like a record, 4 or 5 of them that you can buy on day one. And then for like the rest of the summer into the fall, we're going to start to put more stuff on the platform and hopefully lead to a release of like a fairly big name later this year. So with regard to how the app is going to feel, it's going to feel like the opposite of Web3.
That's good news, actually.
There's actually no staking. No, there's actions that resemble staking, but we don't call it staking. There's no farming. There's no APY. It just feels like what a music app should be.
Yeah. Amazing. Like last time when you talked about Coda, like a year back, you told me that some of the Misten engineers told you that this is one of the best move code base in existence. And like 1 year later, how many people are working on this, like on the Coda project in your team? And what is the business model of Coda? Because going through like a bear market kind of situation, like a sustainability becomes like an important part of it. And how is Coda team going to make money from this?
Yeah, so we are very fortunate to have quite a lean team. I'm the only dev. There's no devs except me. So I'm doing everything from smart contract to back end to indexing to front end to like just like the full stack. It's basically me and Claude Code. Like I've got 8 Claude Code bots working at the same time, and me just out, like I just tell them what to do all day. The only code that I seriously like still handwrite is Move, and I think a big reason for that is just most of these tools haven't been trained on much Move because not a lot of Move exists yet. So the Move that they do come up with sometimes it's not that good. But for all the other stuff, it's honestly been a huge help because just based on my workload right now, if I had to hire people to do it, it would at least be like 6 to 8, like 6 to 8, and you'd pay them, I don't know, 10 to 15 grand a month or something. So these tools that we have access to now is actually saving me like $50,000 a month.
That's crazy.
Which is completely absurd. And this was a big worry that I had in the past where I didn't know who was going to do the front end. And now I've been able to do it all myself. It really changed my mind about what a single person is capable of now. And when we do want to expand the team more, I think most of the focus is going to be on getting people to do jobs that require them to be in real life. So people to actually go out and talk to bands, talk to schools, and stuff that requires you to be in person and to be good at talking to people. I think that's actually like a really important skill now, because all of this computer work, I can't imagine a situation in the next year and a half where I would hire, like I might hire one dev, but it used to be the fact that if you were building a technology company, most of the people would be devs. But now I really do think that maybe like a small team of 2 to 3 devs, you're all set on the technology side. Like the tools are just too good. And then, yeah, so most of the focus is going out into the real world and teaching people about what we're building.
And about the business model of Coda, how does that look like?
Yeah, so we're going to be charging a platform fee. So every record that gets sold, there's going to be a platform fee that goes to us for maintaining the platform. We're setting it extremely competitive. So it'll be less than what you would see on Bandcamp, other sites like that. And not only is it less, but the value that the artist gets from putting their music on our platform and generating all of the data on chain, like that will actually end up in the long run to benefit both the artist and the fans a lot, to have all of that information open and in a way that allows the artist to find their top fans without throwing all the money on ads and stuff like that. So we're also building out some B2B tools as well, where companies who are existing to provide some kind of help to bands and stuff like that, there's going to be some tools for them to do that through our platform. So I think B2B and helping traditional companies get onboarded to this new system, I think there's a lot of potential in that as well. Because if you think about all the layers that sit between the artist and the fan, you have distributors, you have 3 or 4 other things. They also don't talk to each other. They don't have the information as well. So if we can pitch to them, like, we have all of the tools to allow you to do your job in a very precise way where you no longer have to guess about certain things. There's also so yeah, no token for now. Not if there is ever a token, it will be after we get really successful. I don't really believe in launching a token up front. So yeah, it's just if we can sell music, we make money. If we can't sell music, then that means we're not doing our job well and we don't deserve it.
I hope you guys sell a lot of music through Coda, and I can't wait to see the app, interact with it, because this is one of the applications that I personally have been waiting for a long time. And I think it's going to be incredible and can't wait to use the app. And before we wrap up the podcast, like going back to the first point that we discussed in terms of sentiment and all that, what would you like? You've been building in this space for a long time, seen multiple cycles. If you can tell a builder like who is just about to quit, I believe there will be multiple of them. What would you tell them right now?
To be honest, I would tell them there's nothing wrong with quitting. And I think that might not be the most optimistic answer, but I don't think quitting is necessarily a bad thing, because they can quit building in crypto and they might go outside of crypto and be very successful.
There are a lot of people going to switching, even creators going into the AI side of things. I've seen this shift happening in the last couple of months, like where like accounts on X who used to talk about like crypto stuff, like Miles Deutscher, they flipped into totally AI. So that I saw a first wave of such switching when ChatGPT launched. The second wave is even bigger because I think Cloud Code and all that, it's like, like everyone used them. Like even I use it almost every day. Like basically all my work is running through it. So that's very tempting. And I have never seen that kind of, so that's interesting. Like, but going back to your reply,
I think that if people are in a position where they feel like they want to quit, and also it's okay to quit and come back. There's a difference between quitting forever and quitting maybe because you need to find a job to pay your bills, and then maybe you come back with a fresh mind. So I actually think like quitting might not be the worst thing, but it's the reason why you're quitting. The other side of that, I guess, is if you are quitting because you feel like you can't do much with the technology, then I would say try out Sui. Like, it might change your mind. Because most people who come on Sui, if they really dive into the features and have a product that they want to build and it's like crystal clear in their mind how this thing should work, what should it feel like, what impact can it make on the world? If someone comes into Sui with that mindset, they're probably still here. There's a lot of people who came to Sui to farm the community when the chain was young. There was a lot of people who came to Sui and maybe didn't work as hard as they should to understand the differences and to understand like why Sui does things different. And maybe those people burned out because they couldn't change their way of thinking or something like that. If you find yourself in a situation where you feel like Ethereum does not give you the tools to be able to achieve what you want, I think if you're in that place, then test out Sui and then give up.
Yeah, I think this is a really thoughtful answer for that question. I think applications like Coda, they will be successful and will result in some kind of renaissance of non-financial applications where people can actually use these technologies. Financial applications are great, but I really believe this technology also enables some useful stuff for people who want to build something. And looking forward to the testnet and then the mainnet. Wish you all the success, and it's been amazing chatting with you, and thank you for taking the time to tell us all about Coda and your conviction in the field and also in Sui.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always great to talk to you. Let's do it again soon.